Everyone, welcome to Baozi Training Leetcode solution. If you want the best mock interview experience in North America, feel free to check us out at baozitraining.org, as always. So I quickly updated all the FAQs. Still everything is in Chinese, but essentially this should answer all the questions. So, we do charge $199 for one interview, but if you really I totally understand if you're a student, graduate student, it's, you might be short of money, but you can also check out a lot of those free mock interviews, just see how it goes. But essentially, what I always saying is, all of our interviewers are from top companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. So they are the real interviewers, and then they are mostly senior engineers and above, or hiring managers. So that kind of things can very, very hard to get it for free. And even though you in those free platforms, it's just you will learn to see, right? Cool. So let's move on to the problem today. So today we're going to talk about this Leetcode problem number 10, regular expression matching. As you can see, the number is 10, which means it's actually a pretty OG problem. But it's very, very similar to our last problem, which is the wildcard matching. If you haven't really looked into that one, check out that one first. So essentially, the problem is a little bit different because, as you see, right, so even within Leetcode, they are not actually being consistent in a way that here, a dot matches any single character versus in the other problem, where's the other problem here? So if you can see is a question mark matches any single character. It's just those kind of small, nitpicks. Anyways, so a dot matches any single character, and a star matches 0 or more of the preceding element. I'll talk about this later, but this is a very tricky and kind of not intuitive sentences. And then they have some kind of note, and then essentially they go all over these examples and to check if a string and a pattern, if they match or not. So the first real problem in this one is, even though you're, well, I should say this. If somebody asks you this question in an interview, it's really, really a bad interview question because, if you know this question, then you can answer it in DP, right? Or what are you trying to get? This is already a well-known studied question. But from our learning perspective, this is actually a pretty good question. Step 0 really in any kind of questions is asking for clarification question, because sometimes interviewers come up with something they just under their mindset, right? It might be different from your mindset. Just ask. To me, this is super confusing. Star or AKA, I just call it star, AKA this should be called asterisk matches 0 or more of the preceding element. So let's look over a few examples. So let's say I have an empty string and a star. So this should return true because a star could match 0 occurrence of the preceding character. So in this case, it's okay, I match 0, so that's basically an empty string, so this should return true. Then how about A and A star? So this should also return true because in this case, the star could match, you can also say 0, but this 0 will be contradicting with the original one because it basically means two things, right? But if you think about, I propose this concept, if you think about everything in the concept of in total. So in this case, the star really means, in total, A will occur only once. So in this case, it's a star, A occurs once, A equals to A. Same thing for here. AA and A star, they should be equal because in this case, a star means A could appear twice in total. So let's see 2 occurrences in total. Just to distinguish, in the first example, in that case, is 0 occurrence in total. Then how about this is a tricky case, right? So I'm not sure if you tested, but this is also something really, really good to ask in an interview to see your critical thinking. So an empty string and a star. So my code below I pasted actually passes OJ and then it will return true, but Leetcode will expect a false. What the heck? Okay. So my argument is I should return true because star means a preceding element. A preceding element is basically in this case empty string. So this basically means 0 occurrence of the empty string, which is empty string. But then you can also argue on the other side is, okay, is the preceding element 0? Does it count? Don't think so. So let's see. P could be empty and contains only letter A to Z and characters like, yeah. So this is actually a valid case. So they did not guard it very correctly. So it's very good to ask in an interview for the last case. So the first attempt to solve this question is actually using recursion. Like I said, I haven't really coded up. Oops, remove the preceding. Okay. First we'll remove the preceding. I'll delete the double remove. So as long as you see a star, so you will remove the previous element. For example, like in this case, A star, you will just remove the A star and then map AA with the empty string. See how it goes. And another solution is, and then another recursion is for every character equals to preceding char in the pattern, as long as they equal to the current character, you just need to recurse and compare. So just from in a ballpark, this looks like an exponential like time complexity, but I pasted a more detailed like Leetcode. I referenced this is, oops, I think I pasted it wrong, should not be the implement tree, but I will paste the solution here. So has some math to prove it's exponential. And now basically we come to the real part, right? So how do we solve it in dynamic programming? I mentioned multiple times what kind of problems can be solved in dynamic programming, DP, which is, only answer the question like yes or no, true or false, and or extreme values like maximum, min, best, optimal values. And then also the coding pattern looks exactly the same every time for DP problem. So you initialize a lookup array, could be one-dimensional or two-dimensional. Normally the size will be +1 because just make your coding simple. And then you get the math formula and then you code it up. So for this problem, there's essentially 3 cases. So I listed my code here. This is basically, if you click the picture, so this is the first if. By that, what I really mean is here. So this is the first if, second if, and a third if situation. So let's look at the code and then talk about what are those situations actually means. So the code looks like this, right? So first we do some sanity checks. You get the row and column. This is what I mean. You always increase the size by 1 to make your coding simple. Lookup 0 equals to 0. So if you look at 0 equals to 0, this is literally 0 equals to 0, which is the match. Empty string maps empty string. And then you initialize the lookup table. So the initialization is more like, if you see a star, by default, everything is false, right? Because this is Java. Everything in a Boolean is false. By default, is as long as you see a star, right? So if the previous element is a star, is a true, then you are true because you just carried over. Or if j larger than 2, is like you go back twice. Why? Because remember, a star can really actually means 0 occurrence of everything, right? So if I look at one example here, let's see. So it's essentially like this one. So if this is first is true, this is not equal to star, it's false, and then this star, this is actually false. It won't carry false because j minus 2, this is also true, so you should carry over to true. And if you look at this, you're really trying to map an empty string with a C star, and then C star could actually be empty string, so that should be a true. So this is our initialization phase. And then essentially we're basically populating. So see, this populating is very easy from I to equal to row because I allocate row more than 1, right? And then I do a double loop. This basically explains the time complexity. Okay, let's talk about so basically I break it down into 2 parts. One part is basically character is not equal to star, which is this part. That should be very simple. So that should be more like, okay, as long as, your previous like diagonal should be true, and you either the character equal like 2 characters in the pattern, and now the character in the pattern equals to the character in the string, or the character in the pattern is actually a dot that can map everything, so that will basically equal to true. So we have many cases like this. It's like, for example, we can look at this case, right? This case literally here, we can map to a so this is a true, so A equals to A, so this basically means, okay, this is a true, and then this will carry over to true. And then let's talk about the star part. The star part, this is basically the first if, which essentially is, on the same row, the column is basically true. So what I mean by first if is, hey, where's my first if? Here's my first if. So this is basically the case. So if this is true, the previous element is true, and then you're a star, you will carry over to true. So what it essentially means is you are trying to map a C to a C star. And because this star can literally means 1 occurrence of the previous one. So your previous one is true, this will be true. So this is the first if. And then look at the second if. So the way I code it up is, just a little bit of optimization. If you're already true, I don't want to set you again. Just as simple as that. And then we'll basically look at this one. So what does this one means? This one is second if. The second if, I think I pasted it here. This is more like this one, right? So if you are a star, let's see. If your previous row is a true, so basically your previous row is true, and also the character has to be either the previous one, your current character equals to the pattern, like the previous pattern, or your pattern is actually to a star. So this equals to true, and also the character, because you're comparing character here, like this one, this character to, I'm mapping not good, so let's see. So this character, which is a dot, compared to this character here. So if they are equal the same, and then you should mark this value as true, because here, if you think about this, what we're really matching is like this A and star A. So this is basically, well, I guess to be honest, it's not that intuitive, and I will show you how I figured out is actually by using this. You should I should comment out this line. This is not, shouldn't be here. And then the last if is this one. The third if is this case. So this case, what it really means is if, still like this, if j is larger than 2, so we can go back like twice. So if j is larger than 2, we can go back twice on the same row. It's essentially like this case, if it's a star, and then we go back like this, same row, which we all, because this can mean 0 occurrence. So this also appeared in our initialization. Actually it took quite some time because I actually print up a method, like print out the Boolean matrix. As you can see, the reason I do this is, when I code it up, it actually is not intuitive. I missed some cases, so I printed that up and then I pasted it into this array, and then I actually do it one by one to check my case. I encourage you to do the same. So essentially you print out the array, and then essentially what I do is, as you can see, I printed out the array, and then I'll paste it up here, and then I'll validate myself. Such a kind of a pain in the butt for this question to get it completely right in the first one. And I don't expect anybody, honestly speaking, like even you work at Facebook, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, I don't expect anybody, I think maybe most of the engineers cannot do it right in the first run, just to be honest with you. So if you can't hit it in the first run, don't feel bad, because it is a hard problem. So time complexity, very obvious, it's OM times n, and space complexity the same. Yeah, that's it. I will fix whatever those things the typos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.